how to be ecumenical. My mum came with me to church the other Sunday. The vigour she threw at the songs in our tiny inner city congregation reminded me that she is 70 years a Methodist. It probably helps that she's also a lifelong member of the East Surrey Operatic Society, but in her soul she's a singer, and between them the Wesleys provided with her with all that she needed to commune with God. I think I realised I was done with Methodism when aged 15 and shortly returned from an overly evangelical Pathfinder camp. I got into a stormy argument with the vicar at my confirmation class about hell and the miracles of Jesus. I wanted to find a church where things were taken a little more seriously. Soon enough, I was seriously snogging the son of the Anglican vicar. What better excuse to discover the joys of being ecumenical? Of course, for my generation and those that follow, it's difficult to imagine anyone being 70 years anything. We're moving jobs and homes and countries and partners more regularly than at any other time of history. But in this climate, I think I've got pretty good ecumenical credentials. By the time I left university, I'd clocked up another 2, number 3 and 4. I welcomed the thorough Bible study of the Baptists and the freedom of worship of the Charismatics. Though, to be honest, I missed the place afforded women in Methodism and the social world that suburban Anglicanism had given me along the way. In independent charismania, I felt I'd reached the pinnacle, a church without a denomination, no less, the King's Church. It nurtured in me an increasing certainty that we were right and everyone else was wrong. But ironically, it led me to a gap year with the Church Mission Society, and in direct consequence to my realisation that there is no us and them. It's just us, which surely is the heart of ecumenism and why it should be central to our faith. Less than honourable motives also led me to denomination number 5. My time in India saw me trying to find some respite from curry for breakfast and lunch and supper and enter the Seventh-day Adventists, who made their own peanut butter and cooked hamburgers for tea. I was never that convinced by the no coffee, no dancing, no listening to secular music lifestyle, but the Jesus is coming back any minute approach really focuses your mind on what's important in life. I had to fall in love again to get me to number 6, inner city Anglicanism. The church in East London and its vicar inspired the BBC comedy series Rev, and is about as far from its suburban sister as it is possible to get in almost every respect. At first, I missed the upbeat, unquestioning faith of my previous incarnation, but I was beginning to get a sneaky feeling that Jesus would have preferred it to almost any other church I had been to. Many of my forebears had been Congos before Methodists, so settling in the architecturally famous Congregationalist Church of the Round Chapel in Hackney felt somewhat like coming full circle. It's a United Reformed Church now, number 7, and the people who go there aren't exactly URC diehards, but love the fact that it's a diverse, local, socially aware congregation that's committed to its neighbourhood. It boasts Pentecostals, Catholics, Anglicans, Baptists, Quakers and Mennonites amongst its number. We ended up there because there was a new alternative service starting up, and soon Host was a regular on the alternative worship scene, number 8. As a culmination of an ecumenical journey, for me it was ideal. We borrowed votives from the Catholics, icons from the Orthodox, labyrinths from the Celts and festivals from the Jews. We nurtured radical social justice values, favoured nonconformist liturgy, and sang songs from the global south. So far, so good, so ecumenical. But I have a confession to make. I've really loved the influence of African and West Indian worship in my faith journey, but we are currently sharing our church building with a rather large African Pentecostal denomination. And I'm ashamed to say they rather irritate me. I'm regularly turfing them out because they've overrun their service. They're using rooms they haven't booked. I'm having to tell them to turn their PA down. And I feel embarrassed that neighbours might think I am somehow involved in their shouty, name it, claim it approach to Sunday worship. Why is that so hard? Why, after 20 years of broadening my mind, do I find it still not in my nature to embrace difference? So much easier to favour the things we know well which we can easily understand. Seemingly so hard to make the extra effort to discover what others who do things differently might teach us about God. I have been lucky enough to work for the Quakers, number 9, for 10 years, and all that time my husband has worked for the Salvation Army. A cheats 10? Why is it that they never work together? They're both two of the most impressive social justice organisations in the country, but one is hung up on pacifism, one on their military hierarchy, and never the twain shall meet. I believe that being ecumenical is at the heart of being a follower of Jesus. If we can't get underneath the skin of fellow Christians with a totally different outlook, how are we ever going to begin to understand and change the world with our fellow travellers who are not even in the churches? The word ecumenical comes from the Greek oikumene, meaning the inhabited earth, the whole known world, not just Christian denominations, but the wider global community of faith. And the more I rub shoulders with men and women of faith of all types, the more I'm convinced we should stop highlighting what's different and just start getting to know each other and working better on what we agree on. When I went to India, I imagined it might be difficult to stay feeling close to God without any regular Christian worship or fellowship. But here's the thing. My most profound spiritual experiences in 9 months of travelling around India came straight out of 3 faiths totally different to my own. Receiving the most gracious and generous hospitality as a stranger in a Muslim home. Being shown round by my devout Hindu friend around his beloved Hindu temple. And being overawed by the beauty and the simplicity of the ubiquitous prayer flags in Buddhist Ladakh. In fact, if I had one top tip to offer as to how to be ecumenical, I would recommend that at some point in your life you go and spend some time somewhere in an alien culture, preferably one where the dominant religion is not your own. I found it incredible what it did to my view of the Almighty when I realised at a deep, fundamental level, rather than just in my head, that quite apart from any issue of gender, God is not English, or European, or Protestant, or white, or Christian. Earlier this summer I had the privilege of spending 10 days with a rather diverse group of people. Amongst them were a Jamaican woman from Ichthus, a Quaker activist, a Muslim civil servant, an Irish Catholic, a reader in the C of E, an ex-premier radio DJ, and a retired teacher so disillusioned with church that though his life has been dedicated to it, he now describes himself as secular. They have put aside differences of faith and theology in order to become human rights defenders in the West Bank. There they will work alongside Israelis and Palestinians, whether Christian, Muslim, Jewish or secular, protecting people by their own presence and advocating for peace and justice on their return home. All of them point to the diverse ecumenical nature of the programme as its huge strength. This is what being ecumenical is about. It isn't an intellectual pursuit, it's an emotional one. It's an experiential one, a practical one. It's not about navel-gazing meetings in musty church halls or grandiose papers written by academics. It's about a group of people saying, we believe we can be good neighbours. We can make the world a better place. We can stand against hatred. We can do this together. This being ecumenical results in some extraordinary projects, which feed the homeless, offer shelter to asylum seekers, provide a lifeline via food banks, campaign for a living wage. I could go on and on. There is even one in my own church. Urban Table is a cross-church initiative providing a meal every Sunday to homeless men and women. And to give them the credit, my brothers and sisters in that Pentecostal church that irritates me so much take their turn too. And the guests probably rate their chicken and rice much more highly than the soup and sandwiches offered by the other denominations. Maybe I should just get my name on that volunteer list. Perhaps over the large cooking pots of our church's rather dysfunctional kitchen, I would learn again the joys of finding that people I thought were very different from me aren't at all. Discover again the delightful and essential benefits of being ecumenical. Perhaps you'll join me.